So we started Kaizen about 2.5 years ago, and the goal of the company has always been, as we say at our slogan, driving potential in humans further. Just about 10 months ago, we came up with the idea for our most recent device, which we call Sense. And with that, we were accepted into the first Canadian Lunar Payload Accelerator. And we were very fortunate to be working with very amazing mentors and just a great group of people who really helped us grow and take that initial idea to the next level. So from there, we're looking into helping astronauts with improving their performance, monitoring their health as they go to the moon and Mars and beyond that. So that's the kind of work that we're focusing on at Kaizen. We are a group of engineers and scientists who are all very passionate about space and have experience with satellites, project management in space, radiation in space, all sorts of walks of life. So it's a really amazing team to be a part of, and it's truly an honor to be working with these people. It's a little bit of a long story, actually. Kind of starting with about 28 years ago. I was born in a country with very little access to aerospace careers as a woman. So that path really wasn't viable to go into. I immigrated a couple of times until I landed in Canada 8 years ago. And I was given the opportunity to start working on satellites. And I always like to say that to begin with, I'm not an engineer. I did not come from a technical background. I actually learned everything that I know in space by teaching kids about satellites, and I learned with them, alongside them. So, and whenever someone tells me I want to get into space, but I'm not an engineer, I don't know how to code, I don't know how to do this design, I always tell them that really space and aerospace is just the most diverse field there is. We need everyone from all backgrounds. So, and that really applied to me. It really resonated with my heart. I kind of took that passion a little bit further. I started with joining SFU satellite design team back in early 2018. And I started designing medical payloads for CubeSats. And the goal of that was to save astronaut time from running experiments on the ISS, and also incorporating what I was doing in the degree of health sciences and biochemistry with satellite science. And from there, the doors really opened, and I started my master's degree right after that, and kind of dove a little into human physiology in space and how to improve astronaut health in space. And from there, it was just kind of a chain of events. Kaizen was born. All the amazing people that I was working with when I first started learning about space, we all came together and we started a company together. And we all had one goal, and we saw a problem and we had a solution for it. Just like any other startup kind of is born. We wanted to help improve human health in space. And that's kind of what we set our mind to. And that's where we are right now. But really, I wasn't one of those people who was always doing this, and I wasn't a technical member, an engineer. At some points, I totally thought, maybe this is not for me, because it got difficult at some points, like everything else. But it was the people, the support, just that inherent drive, and just seeing that this is such a promising industry, and there's so much to be done, and it's always growing. It never stops. There's always more to do. And as stressful as that can be, it's also very motivating. So that's kind of what's kept me in this industry and keeping me going. I always like to go back to a concept that I'm sure I'm not the only one who's thought about this or given it a name, but it's something that it literally happens to me every single day at my job and what I do. And I like to call it the art of thriving outside of the box. I think when you are not in the field, when you're someone that is not that technical person, you definitely have some disadvantages, but you also have a big advantage. And that is the fact that everything is happening inside that box and you are seeing everything from outside of the box. So in some sense, you're not seeing those walls around you. They don't limit you. You can kind of let your imagination run wild with the ideas. You can see the problems clear and you can, therefore that kind of gives you the power to come up with solutions that are a little bit out there, but that kind of becomes your drive. And I think that was the most important kind of knowledge, the most important pearl of wisdom, if you might, I gained through my journey. And it's something that I had 4 or 5 years ago. I still have it every day happen to me. And it's that if you think because you come from a different field and you don't feel like you're fitting in, because you will feel those, don't think about it as a weakness. It's actually a strength. And the aerospace industry really welcomes that these days. While back, maybe that was really not the case, but the industry is opening itself more and more to diverse fields. Diversity is becoming a big thing in all aspects of the word. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, that what you perceive to be your weakness in this industry actually is your strength. And I can speak for this industry because this is the industry I'm in. But I've seen it in many other aspects of life as well. And I really had to learn that. I think that's the biggest one. Now, there are other aspects as well. I think just the courage, the having the, that mindset that, what, I see a problem and I think I have a solution. Let me put it out there and see where this goes. Because at the end of the day, if you put this out there, worst case scenario, you're going to hear no's and, you're going to fail, right? What can be worse than that? But along the way, you made friends, you made connections, you have people who you can just call up and talk and just consult and, have some meaningful connections. That's literally the worst case scenario. And that worst case scenario sounds quite good to me. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, that sometimes you just need to put yourself and your ideas out there and just have that drive to just go for it. Because honestly, the worst case scenario is not too bad. There is always going to be something or someone better than you. And I think it's one of those pills that is tough to swallow when you are in a field where you're inherently doing a lot of amazing work and, space is the final frontier. And it is the space for the inspirational things. That lesson for me has helped me to always try to catch up. And given, it's extremely humbling. And never forget that what I'm doing here is contributing to a bigger goal for humanity, for the next generation. And I've mentioned this before, and I always mention it, the work we do is that most of it is for the fact that in 20 years from now, a kid will look up to the skies and say, if they could do it, I can do it too. They look like me, they got this, so I got this. So that's contributing to the bigger picture. So the biggest lesson for me was that, there's always going to be something in someone better to do what I'm doing. That's just a fact. But I will continue to contribute to that bigger vision because we will get to that vision together. We will get to that vision when collaborating with each other, when making those connections, when working together, talking together, discussing the problems in the industry together openly. So that's definitely been my biggest lesson, that, people can be better in it, and they are. But as long as we're all contributing to that vision, we are fulfilling that bigger dream, that bigger picture for humanity. With regards, I think kind of the biggest point here is that I work in kind of two separate avenues in space. So one of them is working on biomedical advancements for improving human health in space directly, when we're dealing with a human user or an astronaut. But the other part, I've worked on satellites. That's what I started with. And that was utilizing satellites as basically a test bed, as a platform for running experiments in space uncrewed, where we don't have to send these experiments to astronauts on the ISS and ask them to contribute to it or run those experiments and runs for us. So being able to utilize satellites, specifically I worked on CubeSat, so that's kind of what I'm discussing here, but being able to use those platforms as kind of a test bed for doing science that can be done on crude while forwarding automation in space, which is basically what it really comes down to. You are running an experiment, scientific study automated. It's going to be huge going forward because that becomes kind of an avenue for just progressing automation, for progressing communications, progressing in running scientific experiments in space as we go forward. Now we're talking about commercial space stations. Now we're talking about commercial space flight a lot more openly than we have before. There's been a lot of work done there. So this becomes very important. And that's the aspect that I see that I've been doing, the work that I've been doing with satellites. That's kind of the aspect that I've tapped into. I think there is a lot of value in really utilizing those payloads. So science, usually, it's been combined with satellites and CubeSat payloads before, but to have that next leap, to do more science, more progressive science, and, looking at things like developing pharmaceuticals. It's been done using the space for developing pharmaceuticals is something that's been researched for a long time on the ISS. So let's kind of shift that view. Let's look at it in an uncrewed environment, which is kind of what we've been trying to do with CubeSats and medical payloads. Now, on the other side is the human monitoring and human health monitoring in space that I mentioned, the work that we're doing with Kaiden. It's a little bit different from that, but that also comes down to making sure that when our astronauts are in space, first of all, they're healthy, and we want to be there to improve their performance. We don't want to keep them from doing things. We want to enable them to do more. And for that, you need to be able to have really clear measures on things, on physiological systems, on human health. Human health is a very complex thing. It's not just one system, it's thousands of systems working together. And it's a very holistic thing to look at. So that's kind of the avenue that we're taking with human health monitoring. So those aspects I can talk a lot about. I can go on for hours because those are the ones that I worked with. So as we're going forward with human spaceflight, commercial human spaceflight, going further, going back to the moon, going further, going to Mars even, human health is going to be one of the most important thing, if not the most important thing in this aspect, because you need healthy astronauts, you need healthy humans in order to go out there, explore, contribute to this science, contribute to becoming an interplanetary species. So all of that is really important. I mean, we like to call humans precious cargo because, we got to take care of them. We got to make sure they're healthy. So when you put all of those together, they really go different paths, but at the end of it, really contribute to life in space and on Earth. I think that's really important to point out. The quality of life on Earth could improve when we utilize the space correctly and, for the benefit of humans. The biggest thing I would tell myself is to not worry about time. And I think time is one of those things that a lot of people think, rightfully so, I do, they think that we don't have control over. And I mean, we don't, time goes by. But because we're afraid of the time running out, we do things in such a rush and we think we have that limited time to do everything. So we got to do everything, make ourselves tired and drive ourselves to burnout and do everything all at the same time. Take a bite out of every single opportunity just to kind of be there, to be included. And I always talk very openly about it because as I finished my bachelor's, as I finished my master's, I felt all of these. And I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the most amazing individuals in this industry, all of which are doing fantastic work out there. And it is really hard not to compare yourself. And I think I would tell myself to not worry about time and not compare myself with others because I've been there, I've done that. I think to say that there is no fear of missing out in this industry is going to be a lie because it's out there. And what we can do as people who are going a little bit more forward, and the advice we can give to the younger generation is it's going to be there. It's just how you deal with it. It's how you minimize it and how you don't let it rain on your parade, basically, and how you let it not ruin those amazing moments you can have where you're learning, where you're applying what you're learning. And you really have that vision. Hold on to that vision and time will work in your favor, and things will work in your favor. And as long as you have your eyes on the prize, things in that way, just in a crazy way, they will come together. And I say a crazy way because sometimes I didn't know how things came together. They just did. So I have no scientific explanation for that, even as a scientist. But I think it's important to recognize that and be openly talking about that. I think that's what I would tell myself. Don't worry about time. Do not compare yourself to people. And if you do, don't be too hard on yourself. When I'm always asked the question about, I think one of the biggest questions I'm always asked is the most frequent one, is that you work on all these things go into space. Like, how is this going to affect people on Earth? And I always, the most simple example I like to bring up is that everyone's cell phone. We're so glued to our cell phones these days, right? Everything happens on there. And that wouldn't be possible without utilization of space and satellites. That's the most simple one. Now we can talk more. We can talk about things like telemedicine, would not be possible without the utilization of satellites in space. Healthcare, using space as a test bed for developing pharmaceuticals, like I mentioned, there were studies being done on the ISS about developing potential pharmaceuticals for Parkinson's disease using the environments in space and microgravity. And we think about it, and sometimes it's really easy to miss all these important work happening in space when we just look at it and say, well, it's just outer space. There's so much work happening out there. Our astronauts are doing great studies out there. All the academia, people in academia, people in industry, they're really pushing for utilizing that outer space for helping things that are happening on Earth. Biggest one out there right now, climate change. And again, utilization of satellites, that would give us so much more information about what we're doing on Earth to minimize, the effects that we're having on climate change. So it is so integrated in our everyday life, sometimes without us noticing, that putting it out there and going into every single detail, like, it would take me hours. But it's really present. It's so much more out there that we can talk about. It's really not just one thing. If I were to just pick one thing, I think the most important one right now these days that it's really important to talk about is climate change, and how utilization of space and satellites can help us see what we're doing and see what we can do to minimize our effect on climate change, how we can go towards the better direction, and how we can help preserve our resources on Earth, help people, help the environment. So that would be the biggest and most important one, which I think everyone should pay more attention to. But again, the list goes on. It's a massive list, and I can go on for hours.